What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff, arm yourselves, life stuff. I noticed some things and did some more thinking. I think the noosphere is experiencing a feedback loop. Human consciousness is very loud right now, and it's like a bad concert. The worse the noise gets, the worse it gets because it's getting worse. The nastiness is getting deafening, and the positivity is false. It's nastiness, it's passive aggressive, and it's very easy to get caught up in the noise or defeated by the noise because it feels like everything is going in only one direction. And I think it is going in only one direction, but there is interesting stuff happening within all that noise you can look at and think about and adjust yourself around accordingly. First and foremost, let's think about that sentiment. Weak men create bad times create strong men create good times create weak men, so on and so forth. I've always felt disgusted by that idea, but I think I've figured out why. Two reasons. First, everyone from every generation and every time considers themselves the strong men produced and living and suffering so terribly in the bad times, working now to create the good times. The eternal victim, the eternal scrappy, good hearted struggler. That's bullshit, and that annoys me. But once again, this is another thing I've, for a while now, had a strong negative emotional reaction to. And I wasn't classifying it strictly as a basic phoniness thing, so what's going on here? Why is this hitting different? Second reason, we are the weak men. I think people act like this cycle happens in 20-year increments or something like that, and that certainly isn't the case. This saying or this sentiment bugs me so much because I think it is true. However, it doesn't operate like clockwork. And it's certainly not like a tennis match between generations, a good generation and a bad generation. It's not like that at all. The weak men started with the boomers and has carried down into the zoomers, and it feels like it'll go into Generation Alpha and Generation Beta. I feel like we are in a downswing that's going to last a good long while, has already lasted a good long while. We're all miserable because things are getting worse, but it feels this miserable because technologically we don't have a frame of reference to compare this misery against, and two, we are riding the good times down. We're experiencing a diminishing of the good times. We have not reached Dark Age bad times yet. And going back to that sentiment, when you think strong men make good times, in that situation you're witnessing an upswing. I think the reason human consciousness is so deafeningly terrible right now is how else can it be? We are experiencing the degradation. We, the weak men, are witnessing we and all the other weak men making things worse all together all the time. And I think the times we're living in, it's one of the reasons evil is such a weird concept. Because right now it feels like everybody's evil. And I think that's because everybody is, in fact, evil. Or more correctly, they are saturated with the times and the decline, and that's not only why they act the way they do, we act the way we do, but also why it seems like almost nobody is aware of how shitty they are. Nobody wants to take responsibility for how awful they are. It's like doublethink. On one hand, for most people, this is the norm, so this is the way they are, so why would they be judged for being normal? Yet, on some level, people can sense this is not the way things are supposed to be, hence the projection and denial of responsibility. But here's one of the things I've noticed, interesting things I've noticed, in my efforts to step back and try to figure out what's going on. Have you noticed the way not just celebrities or talking heads or whatever, but civilians are getting actively and loudly evil, acutely evil, in ways that would be unheard of in other times? That got me thinking. Why are some people doing this? And it seems like that's on the rise. Because the norm right now is to be rather bad with zero self awareness and no responsibility. Whereas this rising subset of the population, and it's not limited to one place or one sort of person, this seems like a minor trend within a much larger decline. Why are these people getting this sharp? Practicing their own zero tolerance against baseline norm bad and fake positivity, kindness good. And calling back to a video and a comment chain argument from a long while ago, it feels like now. Yes, actual good people do exist, but they are so few in number. You probably aren't one of them. And people who are actually good get devastated by all of the generally bad, fake positive, and acutely evil people. But why the sharpness in this small but growing population? I think it's because people sensitive to reality, even if they aren't conscious of it, detect what's going on, understand what's going on some level, and are, for some reason, leaning into it. As in, instead of racing to the top as one would if we were on an upswing, because we're on a downswing, they are racing as fast as they can to the bottom. Consciously, actively, pretenses and governors dropped. I think it's an effort to accept what's going on instead of denying it while participating in it. And maybe this isn't what's going on, but looking at it this way makes me feel a little better about humanity, because it means in an increasing number of people, there is still, at least within some people, a basic distaste or rejection of falsehood. The truth isn't just ugly, it's evil, it's nasty, but it's at least the truth. And with that sort of acceptance comes power. If you're sailing on the sea, are you going to get more speed and travel further trying to fight the wind, or by catching it in your sails and riding it? That's why when I see people saying things that are cruel and terrible, not just in a flippant, offhanded way, the way most people are cruel and awful, but consciously, sharply awful, it makes me think more and more people are actively gearing up for the inevitable they have recently recognized. Because whatever's coming is not going to be good. People right now are the least decent and empathetic and warm they've ever been. They're the most unreasonable and aggressive they've ever been. People are looking for ways to make things worse, but it's like humanity is not preparing for the world it is creating and about to step into. Once again, World War I situation. So I think this rise of citizen evil, call it whatever you want to call it, feel about it however you want to feel about it, I think it's an effort in some people to take control over their own fates within this decline. prepping themselves to step into the dark ages that are about to be here. The real bad times that the actual strong men will crawl out of. Whether that's our children or our grandchildren, I don't know, but it feels like we're getting closer. And the number of people who don't want to be suckers is on the rise. And I think that's all one of the reasons we are feeling out things on this channel in terms of upsetting people anyway. It's not just to drive people away. It's not just to antagonize the sorts of people I like antagonizing. Usually because they or people like them antagonize me or shit I do in some way. It's not just that, I'm realizing. I don't think anyone totally understands half of what they do. The best you can do is observe your own behavior and make guesses and try to figure yourself out and everything else out. Anyway, I think we're trying to find vulnerabilities in the human ego. Not how do you upset certain groups, but what about people in general is upsetting. And in that vein, I was thinking more about that odd, cold, lonely, envious feeling I had yesterday. I think I figured out what's going on, and it ties into all of this. I think it felt cold and lonely, not just because of the shame, because shame will make you feel cold. Shame will make you feel any number of things. But that loneliness flavor was odd. Why would these feelings make you feel lonely? I think it was or is the understanding before dumb, useless language could catch up and articulate it, put it into words. What you're feeling in this situation is not at all uncommon. I think it's uncomfortably and sadly, depressingly human that even when you're trying to feel positive emotions about something or do feel positive emotions about something or someone, you involuntarily have these negative feelings like shadows underneath the positive feelings. And that's embarrassing, that's shameful. That's why you probably try not to acknowledge them in yourself or attack them in others or just try to distance yourself from them because it's so uncomfortable that there is this part of you that is naturally, involuntarily, basically you, ugly and nasty. And I think the loneliness element comes from realizing other people feel this way about you too. Even the people you're closest with, when they're happy for you or they're enjoying spending time with you or this or that, there is an involuntary part of them that resents you, that hates you, that wants to see you fail, that wants to beat you. It's in them as much as it's in you. And you can't really do anything about it. You can repress it, you can not act on it, but that doesn't eliminate it. And I think that's where the loneliness feeling comes from. Knowing that you can't escape what you are, other people can't escape what they are, even if anybody wanted to. And it contributes to the knowledge that you are basically alone, because even with the people you are closest with, there are elements in them you need to watch out for and to protect yourself from, because they might be repressing it, they might not even be aware of it, but it's there. In the same way, you can't be surprised when other people protect themselves from you, because you have that part that you're protecting yourself from in them. And this is another one of those understanding versus knowing things. You can say you understand you're basically alone, the people are basically alone, but then more of it gets revealed to you and your understanding deepens. And it seems like that's another aspect of this understanding versus knowing thing. It seems like whenever there's something to understand, especially when it has layers like this, and especially when it feels mystically or existentially potent, the moment you catch yourself understanding certain things more, you can guess there is a level of knowing waiting for you somewhere out there in the darkness of the future. And it's inevitable. Unless you hide from it, but that doesn't change the fact that there is something to know. And if it's there to know, then it is capital IS. And what does it mean to know terrible things like these? So, tying back into what we were saying, it feels like we're feeling for these things, these vulnerabilities, these weaknesses, these uncomfortable, repressed, attacked, alienated parts of self common to all people. So, you can figure out how to make yourself less vulnerable by identifying them and working with them and dealing with them as much as anyone can deal with them, while also identifying weak points in other people when shit comes to blows. Because in this race to the bottom, I think there is some safety land, some little inverted islands of safety, but space in those places is limited and access is restricted. So you need to make yourself worthy of getting what little there is to get, while also being capable of fighting off people who are less capable but perhaps more numerous. Or not perhaps more numerous. It's going to be you alone or maybe with a small group of people versus lots and lots of people. And I'm framing this as a conflict. It is a conflict. I'm not necessarily saying like a physical conflict, fighting over toilet paper again or whatever the next toilet paper is, but some kind of conflict over what's there in which these basic human vulnerabilities are going to be very important. Do you know which of your spirit organs you need to protect from other people and you need to be aiming at in other people? And I suppose an easy example of this, one I think a lot of people are beginning to pick up on, is everybody's need to feel like they're the good guy all the time. No matter what's happening, no matter what they do, no matter what their side does, they always need for themselves to function to feel like the good guy. That's a weakness. It's already being exploited. So if humanity right now is in this grand decline and we're in this arms race of evil, but people are so afraid of taking responsibility for themselves, people are so afraid of acknowledging the situation we're in, you actually have a bit of a head start. And you may even have, not even may, you do, in fact, you might be living in the middle of a generational head start. Maybe your recent forefathers were real pieces of shit and they prepared you well, and you're in a situation now, you can prepare your descendants even better to walk into this sentience Armageddon well armed and clear minded, well trained, knowing what's going on and what they need to do to survive, to make better lives for themselves, and to get what they want out of life. A life that is slowly restricting people's ability to get the things they want until we hit rock bottom, and then we can start climbing up and start expanding the things we want, or our ability to get the things we want. To maybe even focus on the finer aspects of humanity. But I don't think it's any mistake things are getting nastier, and people are consciously, sharply nastifying themselves. It's not just something we're doing here. In some instances, Joe Dipshit is doing it now. Now, I'm sure evil Joe Dipshit isn't totally conscious of what he's doing or why he's doing it, but he's doing it. He received the message, and he is taking measures. You are beginning to see that more. It's not just evil, it is evola. Maybe we are living in the dark ages. Ooh, but how much darker can they get? We're going to find out, and I'm not walking into this bullshit totally unarmed, totally unprepared. We, the weak men, aren't experiencing a war for the times because the times will sort themselves out, will bottom out, like breathing. We are experiencing a war for our souls. This is another instance we could keep going on and on. Be observant. Be thoughtful. Reflect. Consider. And never stop vivisecting yourself. I feel like if there's anything to gain, that's how you'll get it. It'll pay off. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.